Hi, my name is Dr. Uri Burstyn. I'm a veterinarian in Vancouver, BC, and I'd like to welcome you to my series of practical skills for pet owners. I'm here with Claudia today to talk to you about something that's very important. How can you tell if your cat's doing okay? This might sound like a weird question to ask, but in reality, less than 50% of cats who live in North America get to see a vet in a given year. And the main reason for that is because people who own cats just look at their cat and say, hey, my cat looks okay, doesn't need to go to the vet, which is not an unreasonable thing to say. Unfortunately, it's not the right thing to say either. I mean, there's many health conditions that cats get, and I call them basically old person diseases, that indoor cats get in particular, that are not at all obvious. And the thing about chronic health issues is the earlier you diagnose them, the more effective the treatment is, the cheaper the treatment is, and the better the quality of life for the patient. And cats, unlike dogs, do not tell you when they're not feeling well. If you think about it, their evolutionary biology, dogs are pack animals. When they get sick, they act sick, and their pack mates take care of them. They'll whine, they'll put on a big dramatic act, and of course, we, their pack, will bring them food, we'll bring them health care, we'll give them lots of love, we'll take care of them. Cats do live socially, but they're solitary hunters. Evolutionarily, they're used to not relying on anyone else for help, which is one of the reasons I love them, is because they're just independent little killing machines that choose to share their life with us. But as a result of that, when they're ill, they don't show it. They try to hide it because they're kind of middle of the food chain. If a cat looks weak or sick, some predator will take it out, like a coyote or, they have a number, they're not top of the food chain animals. They're mid food chain predators, and they have to really hide it when they're sick. And they also don't expect any help from other cats. Not surprising to anyone who's lived with a cat. You don't expect any help from them, anything useful at least. So they don't overtly show signs of illness. And often people come to me with a really sick cat, and they'll be really dumbfounded when I tell them, hey, your cat's really in pain. And they'll be like, well, she's not whining or anything. And then you can see them kind of catch themselves because, when have you ever seen a cat whine? And I mean, certainly cats can vocalize. They can be quite vocal and annoying, but it rarely has anything to do with pain or discomfort. They're more likely to do that when they're hungry or bored or just want to communicate with you. Claudia here is a big talker. And she's certainly very comfortable. So how can you tell if your cat's in pain, feeling sick, not doing well when they don't tell you themselves? Well, this is a difficult question to answer. Vets struggle with this all the time. There's all sorts of pain scores and behavioral scores developed out there for cats, none of which work very well because cats are pretty hard to read. So I'm going to tell you just a few things you can look for at home. They'll help you look at your cat and say, hey, are you doing all right? So one of the really easy and obvious ones is inappropriate elimination. If your cat always uses a litter box, which most cats do, and then all of a sudden starts peeing or pooping on the floor, something's wrong. They're not being contrary, they're not being mean, they're being sick. So owners sometimes tell me that, hey, my cat literally just sat down in the middle of the floor, made eye contact with me, and pooped. Well, that's them trying to tell you something. So if your cat starts eliminating inappropriately when they've always used the litter box before, take them to the vet. There's a reason for it. Chances are the vet can fix it. That is a really obvious way of them telling you something's wrong. Of course, their way of communicating is maybe not very palatable to us, but hey, that's the way they communicate. So that's the really obvious stuff. Your cat poops or pees somewhere inappropriate, well, take them to the vet. Something can be done for it. Hi, sweetheart. Less obvious things, but unfortunately more common, are, there's a couple things. Hiding. Now, cats hide when they're ill. Outdoor cats will just crawl under a porch and try to die when they get really sick. Indoor cats will hang out under the couch or in the closet or somewhere they don't normally hang out, and they'll hang out there a lot. And this can be hard to gauge, unless you're really tracking your cat's movements. You might not notice that the cat's hiding more, particularly if they're an outdoor cat and you don't see them all the time. And cats have their own habits. It's important not to overinterpret this, but increased hiding is something you will notice in a cat who's not feeling well, particularly if they throw a fever or they're really feeling rotten. they'll just be away. They'll put themselves away somewhere dark and quiet and basically wait to either get better or die. It's their natural response to illness. And of course, we as humans can identify that, take them to the vet and make them feel better. So hiding is one. Increased aggression. I think I've talked about that in one of my other videos. But if a cat gets kind of snappy and kind of untouchable and kind of mean, they're probably not mean, but they're probably in chronic pain. You know, chronic pain like having a toothache, sore joints from arthritis, a bellyache, a sore back, really infected hair mats. All of that can cause a cat to get pretty cranky because they're in pain all the time, and their response to pain is to get cranky and bitey and kind of untouchable. So if your cat seems aggressive or seems kind of untouchable, take them to the vet. Maybe there's a source of pain there that can be addressed. So hiding, aggression. The really obvious one that a lot of people pick up on is anorexia. Cats will often stop eating, and many of the old cat diseases like hypertension, kidney disease manifest as poor appetite. So cats will stop eating, they'll hide, they'll won't visit the food bowl as often. It can be a little bit hard to pick up if you have multiple animals, but certainly anorexia is a very common feature of most common cat illnesses and really worth looking out for. Vomiting is a really common sign of many old cat diseases. Now, a lot of people tell me, well, my cat's been vomiting her whole life. And if it's once or twice a year, it's probably normal, not to worry about. But if your cat's been vomiting once a week for its whole life, well, guess what? There's a problem. That problem might be something not very bad. It might be something like chronic food intolerance, inflammatory bowel disease. But even something as subtle as that can convert into cancer later in life. So if your cat's vomiting all the time, that is not normal. That can be changed. That can be helped with when you figure out why they're vomiting and treat it. So it might sound obvious, but many people accept even multiple times a week vomits from their cat as normal. And it's common, but it is not normal. So please don't ignore vomiting in your cat. So we talked about a couple things: hiding, aggression, vomiting, anorexia. All of these things, pretty darn common, but often not that obvious. So even though I said that cats will not vocalize or whine or tell you they're sick, there is an exception to that. Sometimes they will yowl, which is like a really loud, protracted, annoying meow that I'm not going to demonstrate for you, even though I'm kind of tempted to. But they will yowl when they're uncomfortable, and this can be a sign of pain. It can be a sign of constipation. It could also be a behavioral sign. It could be a sign that that something's going a little funny in their head. Unfortunately, cats will also yowl when they're on heat. They'll yowl when there's other cats outside that are making a big fuss. So it's kind of a non-specific sign, but certainly if your cat starts to vocalize loudly and insistently, something's substantially different and needs to be paid attention to. Limping is another sign, and this is kind of true for cats and dogs. People will notice bringing an animal that's limping, and they'll be asking me, "Hey doc, is she in pain?" And I don't know how to answer that. Of course they're in pain. Why else would you limp if you're not in pain? Of course there are certain other reasons like neurologic palsy, but clearly you don't limp unless there's something is wrong with you. So if your pet's limping, there's something wrong with it. Take that seriously, because they're not going to limp just for fun. Certainly animals aren't capable of pretending they're limping. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some dogs can be quite clever about that. But generally speaking, if your pet starts limping when they haven't limped before, chances are something's wrong. So that's just a few of the signs you can look for. Most of them are pretty subtle, but just a few of the signs you can look for in which your cat will tell you that something isn't quite okay. So please don't forget to check in with your cat once in a while, and don't expect anything super obvious. But I find that the astute, aware owner can often identify illness in their cat pretty early on and let us help them. And just because we're talking about identifying subtle signs of illness, I just want to do one more plug for proper veterinary care. Every animal deserves a health check at least once a year. As they age, so over the age of 10 or 11 with cats, they deserve a health check twice a year, because things can go sideways in between there. And doing regular blood and urine testing, particularly on cats as they age, really helps us pick up those old person diseases that they get. Often we'll check their blood pressure doing health checks. Just little things like that will often allow us to identify cats who are sick much earlier than they would have been noticed at home. And then we can start helping them and really improve their quality of life, save the owners a lot of money, and kind of make life better for everybody. So I hope you find this useful. And thank you very much for taking the time to learn about how to look after your cat. Thank you very much for watching. please click like and subscribe. Feel free to share this video with your friends. And if you want to support our good work, please check out our web store. We have some adorable Squish the Cat merchandise there for you. Please give it a look. And once more, thank you very much for watching my videos.